A big deal in the tech space. Alphabet agreeing to buy cybersecurity startup Wiz for about $32 billion. That would be the company's biggest deal ever. The all-cash buyout comes after Wiz rejected a bid from Alphabet last year due to concerns that the deal wouldn't get approved. Will it be different under the Trump administration? Let's ask Jonathan Kanter, former Assistant Attorney General for the Antitrust Division and a new CNBC contributor. Jonathan, welcome to the team. You are the second best guy to have on this topic today. Maybe somebody in the Trump administration would be at the top of the list, but you are as close as you can be to this question without being in the administration, given your experience. The $32 billion question here is, why does Google think they can get this approved by the Trump administration? What do you think?
So that's a lot of billions. So let me say this. I think if this hit my desk at DOJ, there are three fundamental questions I would ask. First is why? Why are they spending $30+ billion with over 30x multiple? What's the strategic rationale? And the DOJ is going to dig into that along with foreign regulators. They're going to try to understand documents and data and talk to witnesses. Second, data. And I think this is where the rubber is going to meet the road on this deal. Google's mission is to organize the world's information, gauge user engagement, and then sell ads. But from my perspective, the regulators are likely to ask whether this is a Trojan horse for Google to get access to data that is increasingly becoming out of its reach. The open internet was really easy to organize the information. The cloud-based internet was a little more difficult, and now we're moving to an AI-based internet. A company like Wiz has the ability to look under the hood and surveil and take inventory of what's happening in competitors' clouds. And because Wiz is multi-tenant, it's going to give Google a really interesting look at the data of rivals, which could affect a lot of its core businesses.
You mentioned size. I was going to say real quick, you mentioned size. We've got a graphic here showing the size of Google's previous acquisitions, and this Wiz deal dwarfs all of those at $32 billion. It's much, much bigger than any of the previous deals. You see them all there, you know, $12.5 billion, $5.4 billion, $3.2. You know, this is way off the charts in terms of the size of the acquisition. I interviewed Andrew Ferguson, the new Trump head of the FTC, last week on CNBC, and he said that size is one thing that they're going to look at. It's not determinative. It doesn't mean that you can't do a big deal, but it is one factor here. What's your guess about whether this deal can get through the Trump administration?
Well, I don't think the Wiz deal is going to ease on down the road to quick approval.
I
think
this is
going to be I did, yeah. It's going to be a long road. They're going to have to look at a lot of documents, a lot of data, and understand whether it's really going to entrench Google's market power in a lot of different markets, not just in cloud, but also in its data and its core search markets because of its access to data.
The irony is some shareholders are a little frustrated, Jonathan. They go, look, they're third place in the cloud. They're at 12% share. Is this a move of desperation? Would they have been better off buying something in the AI space? I mean, look, I used to use Google all the time, and now I've switched a lot of my usage over to chatbots, to Grok and to ChatGPT. So it's interesting that the regulators will look at this from a sort of what are they up to point of view, and shareholders are like, please tell us what they're up to.
Yeah, I think the reality is that Google's still dominant in search and it's still dominant in advertising, a lot of different advertising segments, among others. And so really, again, I think regulators are going to understand the impact on its cloud business, where it's lagging. And I suspect Google thinks that if it can keep this focused on just on its ability to compete more aggressively against Microsoft and Amazon, then it should have an easy path to approval. But if the investigation turns into an assessment of whether it's going to have data that entrenches its position in some of Google's core markets, including advertising, including search and others, then I think it's in for a long investigation, and perhaps it could take quite a while to get approval, if at all.
We should be clear for everybody that, you know, you were a former Biden administration guy, so you're looking from the outside in now on people who are doing a job similar to the one that you did. But you and I have talked on the phone about this in the past, you know, this idea of conservative populism not landing in terms of M&A and antitrust all that far from where the Biden team was on this. Talk about conservative populism in the context of Google. It seems like, if anything, big tech is right at the top of the list of suspects if you're a conservative populist.
It's amazing, actually. Here in Washington, it seems like the parties can't agree on anything. But the one thing that seems to create this sort of unity is antitrust and antitrust around big tech and antitrust around big tech and Google. It seems that Republicans and Democrats have all converged on the importance, the need to do something strong here. It's in many respects seen as a backstop to companies getting so big that they have the power of governments. And that's a concept and a premise that really resonates with conservatives who are fearful of concentration of power.